And our next guest is the chair of IOSCO. It's a preeminent global standard-setting body for securities regulation. Jean-Paul Servais is the chair. And Jean-Paul, I don't know if I did your organization justice by describing it that way. You kind of compared it to a United Nations of securities regulator, which I really like, given that it's United Nations Week.
That's exactly, I would say, the case, except I think that we decide faster, if I may say. Okay. But that's right to say that it's a consensus-based organization, so we need everyone. And that's my job, I would say, to be agile and to find what we're used to call in on the nice language Belgium compromise, because I came from Belgium. And the objective is to see how we can reach convergence, because I have the pleasure to work with 130 jurisdictions.
130?
130 jurisdictions, which means, for instance, for the US, of course, the well-known famous US SEC and the famous US CFTC. And it means that altogether we are in charge in various capacity of the supervision of 95% of all the financial market. So what does it mean to have a discussion at IOSCO? It means to have the capacity to deal with global risk, challenges, opportunities for financial markets, for investors. And that's really, I would say, the place to be for that. And I have to say, especially the last year, because we have been able to reach a lot of, I would say, consensus for many important decisions. And that's my job to do that, I would say.
What are some of the key issues that you guys are facing on a global scale as it relates to regulation of markets?
I would say two things. First, cooperation, and also to see, I would say, if we need standards to define, to have good and poor practices, and to see also if there are new risk opportunities, which could be a real problem at global level in order to avoid to have problem about level playing field. Cooperation. I am sure, Paul, that you know Interpol. Okay, Interpol. Famous organization.
Yes.
The best, I would say, a channel for information about. Do you know who is ranked number 2?
Who?
IOSCO. Because when we start, I would say, with our well-known MMOU, multi-MMOU, it means capacity to issue information about possible aspects related to cross-border market abuse, insider dating, and other problems related to an infringement, a possible infringement to legislation. At the time, it was 20 years ago, I was already there, but not as chair, as member, I would say. We exchange 56 times a year information. No? This year, 6,000.
Wow.
So if you are not too bad in mathematics, which you can expect from a financial cup, it means more than 160 times more information.
Incredible.
So it means that global markets are positive, I would say, from, I would say, the capacity to attract capital from different jurisdictions. And of course, US markets are very attractive for sure, but also the capacity to exchange information for possible infringement. It's about the trust that people must have in our capacity to enforce as supervised. The second one is to exchange information about the trends, I would say. And there are indeed, as you asked me the question a few minutes ago, Paul, there are some new trends, I would say. Some people and more people are expecting a tokenized world, which could mean, I would say, 24 hours in a day trading, 7 days. What does it mean for us? Okay. Do you know, for instance, as well, that in the EU, I would say, we see a shift, I would say, in how and when trading happens on stock market. It means, for instance, that for the time being, this year in the EU, 29% of all, I would say, the trading happens some minutes before the close of the market every day.
The final minutes.
The final minutes, which is, I would say, not a surprise for people specialized like you, but it's more and more the case. So what does it mean about liquidity? That's what we have to deal. It's not only about standards, good practice, to say, okay, how do we supervise? What do we have to do, I would say. Second aspect, which is a good news for me, coming from the EU, I would say, John and Mary in the street are more and more investing on the stock exchange. For you in the US with your famous retirement plan 401k, it's normal. I can tell you in other members and other states, of course, it's not so much, but it's increasing. So it means that people have more trust in the capacity of stock market to attract capital, to invest in real economy. That's a good news, and that's we have to deal with that.
Jean-Paul, that trust in equities, we're starting to see that trust build in crypto. In fact, more trust in crypto and digital assets.
Yeah.
what does the speed of the U.S.'s regulatory agencies on crypto mean for IOSCO?
Very fast, which is a good news, because by definition, I would say crypto asset, it's a dynamic market. And when you have a dynamic market, regulators must be dynamic. And that's what we are doing with the support of Paul Atkins. I had the pleasure to welcome Paul for a very useful meeting 2 weeks ago in Brussels. He traveled a lot in Brussels, and he decided to go to Brussels. It was very useful because we know that the SEC and, of course, the CFTC are involved. There are many new developments in the US, a new executive order, a push for new legislation, new initiative taken by DCT in order to define, I would say, what they mean about crypto products. We already had some initiative at IOSCO level. We endorsed 3 years ago a kind of toolkit for the sake of supervision of cross-border, I would say, crypto asset provider, which is something rather unique. You have, I would say, on the one hand, non-specialized investor, John and Mary Industry, and you have a very specialized, I would say, manager. So how to avoid, I would say, some market development problems is to ensure, because by definition it's a cross-border business and opportunity, therefore we decide to launch a toolkit which is used by many jurisdictions, and not only jurisdiction but also the IMF is now working with our toolkit in order to be used for cross-border inspection. So it means a win-win approach, I would say.
Jean-Paul, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Jean-Paul Servais, he is the IOSCO Chair, joining us live here in the Bloomberg Global Forum.